do a YouTube check once we start? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's webinar. Today we are doing a webinar. We're going to be doing our webinars bi-weekly from now on. So you're only going to get to see my beautiful face live once every 2 weeks. That's twice a month as opposed to once every week. Now we're going to be doing it those other weeks when we're not live. We're going to be doing some on-demand content, and those will be webinars which we have recorded and which we will distribute to all of you fine folks who would like to learn more about the world of live streaming, about emerging technologies. And that's what we're always talking about, emerging technologies. We're talking about what's coming around the corner, what to look out for, what to expect in the future. What are people going to come up to you and say, have you heard about this new thing? What is that new thing that they're going to be talking about? Well, this morning, I'm going to tell you. Here at Stream, we predict the future and we tell you about it before it even happens. So today we're going to be talking about podcasting. Podcasting is already here. It's already the new thing. And my question for you is, for those of you watching out there live on YouTube, do you have your own podcast? That's the question I have for you. Do you have your own podcast? Now, if the answer is no, I'd like to know why. Why don't you have your own podcast? There are so many reasons to start your own show today. It's not too late. Everybody, is doing it, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. Now, Mark, who is sick at home, normally he would be in the studio. Mark is sick at home. We're not sure what he has. We're still finding out. We have to figure out what the heck is going on with Mark. At this point, we don't know what he has, but he is sick at home. I am in the studio, and you can think about our webinar today as a sort of podcast. Interviewing a sick person would probably be the title of the show. Now, Mark doesn't think you should have a podcast. Mark doesn't believe in podcasts. And today we're going to try to change his mind. Mark, why shouldn't people have a podcast?
Honestly, it takes too much work.
All right, so Mark is what we call fake news. Mark is just saying random things that he doesn't know what he's talking about. This is normally what Mark does. He just says whatever comes to his head. And yet again, this morning, he's doing the same thing. He says he doesn't have time. Well, Mark, do you have 1 minute? Do you have 1 minute, Mark?
I suppose we all have 1 minute.
Okay, well, with Stream Studio, you can create a podcast in less than 1 minute. So can we get rid of that talking point that you have, that you don't have time to start a podcast? Do you have less than 1 minute, Mark?
Well, to retort, in your fake news, how is that possible? How can I start a podcast in 1 minute? Doesn't seem logical or even reasonable, feasible.
Well, Mark, I would point to your shirt and I would tell you to check out Stream Studio. Stream Studio is the latest technology in podcasting, in live video, audio production. So what you're going to do for me is you're going to go to studio.stream.com. You're going to go to that website and you're going to start now. You don't need to create an account. You don't need to come up with a password. You don't need to do any of that stuff that would normally slow you down. Now, we're talking less than 1 minute, right? You can invite a guest. You can change your background. Mark, can we change the background here in real time? By the way, folks, we are using Stream Studio to produce this webinar / podcast with a sick person. This is what we're using technology today. Look at all these backgrounds that Mark is switching in between. He is doing this in real time while we are live. This means that we don't have to edit this webinar afterwards. We're producing it live. We're making our changes on the fly. And thank you, Mark. This is breaking news. This is breaking news in the technology world.
I just
now,
learned
Mark,
I could do this in a minute. This is crazy.
Less than a minute, Mark. Less than a minute. Please pay attention. Now, this is less than a minute. Now, Mark is a video producer. He does editing. But basically, Stream Studio is putting Mark out of business because Mark's job is to edit the videos afterwards. With Stream Studio, we don't need any editing. There is no pre-production. There is no post-production. All of it is done live on the fly, right? All of this is done while you're creating your production. So if you say you don't have time, well, if you have less than 1 minute, you can set it up. And while you're doing your podcast, you can do all of your editing, changing the backgrounds, changing the title, whatever it is that you want to do. Mark, let's change up this title screen that we have here. This lower third is what we call it in the industry. Let's write something new. Mark, let's Let's write something new. Maybe change sick at home to just out of a job, thanks to Stream Studio, or fired due to Stream Studio, or obsolete. Mark is a video editor, right? So maybe we can call him obsolete due to Stream Studio. Oh, and apparently I'm a loudmouth. Well, that's interesting. Mark, don't shoot the messenger. I am simply informing the public of the latest and greatest technology in the podcasting.
This is fake news. You have not convinced me. I still don't believe we can use under a minute. I'm still not convinced.
Well,
Can I?
for those of you at home,
anywhere else? Is it just? I'm just. Oh, we're just in a Google call. Big whoop. Can I save
this, Mark, this is so much greater than a Google call. First of all, you can save it. You can send this live to multiple social media platforms. Get this, at the same time. At the same time. So maybe in the olden days, what you would have had to do is you would have had to have 5 laptops. One of them would have been on Facebook Live. One of them would have been on Twitch streaming live. One of them would have been on what's another one that we can go live to with this program? Facebook, YouTube. Let's have another one going live to YouTube, right? You would have had to have all these laptops. You would have had to plug them all in. It would have been a disaster. It would have been a disaster. Now, this is what Mark learned to do when he was in college. He learned to go out and buy 3 or 4 laptops and have YouTube on one and Facebook on another. And all of that information is now obsolete, right? That's no longer how we do it. Mark, if I'm teaching you this morning, it's no longer how we do it. You don't need 3 or 4 laptops anymore. Now you need one laptop with Stream Studio.
Are you saying this lowers the cost of production?
Well, what's cheaper to buy, 4 laptops or 1 laptop?
I'm not very good at math, but I think 1 laptop is better than 4.
1 laptop is the correct answer, yes. So if you have a computer at home, you can go to Stream.studio and you can start using it today. No download required. When I say less than 1 minute, I mean less than 1 minute. It's not, well, once you download it, it's less than 1. No, it's not, well, once you create an account. No, you can create a podcast right now in less than 1 minute. If you set your timer to 1 minute, you will be live with your first episode of your podcast before that timer ends, before that buzzer goes off. Now, what you have to do on your end is you have to come up with what you're going to say during your podcast, right? Stream Studio is not going to talk for you. You need somebody who's actually going to talk during the show, right? You need somebody who's actually going to say something. But think about what we're doing today. Today is a sort of podcast, right? It's like a webinar, but it's also a podcast thanks to Stream Studio. Now, Mark, what if I don't like the layout of this? What if I don't like the way that we look? Can I change the combinations, or do I need to do that afterwards in the editing process? Wow, look at this. Mark has done this live in real time while we're talking. He has just switched our combinations for us. And look at this. We're now filling the entire screen. Or we can make Mark smaller, right?
That's
We
how
can
I
keep
feel
making
right
Mark
now. Keep making fun of me.
can keep making Mark smaller until he completely disappears, right? We can put him up in the top right corner there. These are all of the things that we can do. Mark, can we change loudmouth to streaming expert? Can we do that on the fly, or does that need to be done afterwards in the
No.
editing process?
Boom.
Amazing. Look
On
at
the
that,
fly.
folks. On the fly. And can we change yours to streaming old person? Old man, old grandpa streaming? Streaming boomer. Exactly. That's exactly what you are, Mark. Because Mark still, I saw Mark today. I said, Mark, we're going to be going live with the show. We're going to go live to YouTube. We're going to go live to Facebook. And Mark said, okay, well, let me just go grab a couple of laptops. And I said, Mark, no, we don't need that anymore. We have Stream Studio, right? So Mark is learning with us today. That's why I invited him on the show, so he could sort of learn with us. For everybody watching out there, we can all learn together. Now, maybe you're saying to yourself, Mark, have I convinced you, by the way? Have I convinced you to start a podcast yet?
I mean, you're getting there. You're getting there. I think I need to know a little bit more about Stream Studio and what it can do,
Okay, well, let's
why
do
wouldn't
this,
I
Mark.
just use OBS? Like, what makes Studio so special?
OBS, Stream Studio replaces OBS, Mark. Okay? OBS is finished. OBS is a program that was invented, I believe, in the 1990s. All right. So if you started using Stream Studio, let's say when you were 50, you'd be 80 years old today. You'd be 80 years old. So if you want to go make live content with the 80-year-olds down at the old folks' home, Mark will be picking you up at 3 o'clock for dinner for that production. You guys are going to have dinner at 3 first, and then you're going to do your live show around 4 just before bed. But if you're living in the new world, we're talking Web 3.0, you're going to be using Stream Studio. Let's be honest, folks, here. Let's be honest about what people are doing today. What are the kids doing? Right? We always have to think about what is coming next. That's where you want to be, especially when you're in a world where everybody sort of has a podcast today, except you, by the way. You want to really be the emerging technology person, because what's going to set you apart? Your content. Hopefully you're a content genius like me, but maybe you're not. Maybe you are, and you also want to have some more things working for you. You're going to want to be using the latest technology. So, Mark, I noticed you just added a logo there in the top right corner. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, that's the logo of Street Media, and you can add your own logo, as I'm seeing. So this app, I think I'm being swayed towards it because I'm just here looking at it, and I can just add a logo on the fly. And if I want to, I could add my own. It's just crazy. This level of customization on a web-based platform.
Well, let's not add your logo because your logo is printed out on a piece of paper. Let's use the PNG of the Stream logo, right? A little bit newer technology. So let's keep that Stream logo up there. That's pretty cool. All right, so let's talk about 10 reasons why you should start a podcast. All right, Mark, let's go through these with me, and I think I'm going to convince you here. I think I've got you about 50% of the way there. What do you think?
I could use some more convincing. Hit me with 10 reasons why I should start a podcast.
All right, here's 10 reasons. Now, look, I think you're convinced on Stream Studio. Stream Studio speaks for itself. So I think you're convinced on Stream Studio. But here's why you should start a podcast. A podcast. So audio content is very convenient for the consumer. Now, the reason I say this is because people can listen to your podcast while they're doing other things, right? Maybe they're in the car, maybe they're cleaning their house, maybe they're doing some chores. They can always listen to audio content while they're doing other things, walking around, whatever it is. When you talk about video content, they actually have to be sitting down to watch it. So when you're talking about a podcast, you want to have both. You want to have the ability to go live with your podcast so that you're, breaking news coming out live, people feel engaged. Live content is the best way to build engagement. You want to have that video feature, but you also want to have the audio component on the side, which you can also do with Stream Studio. So we're going to have that convenient audio for consumers. That's number one. Number two, you can build an audience. Let's say you're listening to this and you have a roofing company, for example, and you're watching this webinar / podcast with a sick person, and you're saying to yourself, why would I have a podcast? I have a roofing company. Well, let's say I'm going to get a new roof. My roof is leaking. I need to get a new one. And I'm looking at different places, and I see one of the roofers has a podcast. And I click on it, and I start to listen to this content, and I see, wow, this guy knows a lot about roofs, right? Maybe he knows just as much as all the other roofers, but I'm not exposed to their content. This guy has content. And folks, in this world, in the new world, content is king. You got to have content. And starting a podcast is a great way to build that audience, to start having content. We're talking content marketing, right? So you could maybe list 10 facts about a roof, how to know your roof needs changing, what type of shingles are the best, all of this. And right at the end, you're going to mention, by the way, call this for a quick quote or go to this website for a quote.
So do you think because this roofer has his own podcast, he builds a rapport with his audience and shows his level of expertise? And so the person listening to the podcast will be like, this guy knows what he's talking about. Maybe when I have roofing problems, or which I do right now, I trust this guy. Or
exactly.
I feel more comfortable calling him for a quote because he seems to know what he's talking about.
Exactly. You're going to look at this person as an expert. And the more content you have, the more of an expert you are, right? Think about it when you think about Gary Vee. Why is Gary Vee an expert in the content industry? Does Gary Vee have a degree from Harvard in content? No. Has Gary V, you know, saved a piece of content from a burning building? No. So why is he the content king? Because he's got the most videos. When you look up anything regarding content, you're flooded with videos of Gary Vee telling you what to do. Ergo, he's an expert. It's as simple as that, folks. The guy with the big podcast about roofing is going to have a lot of exposure and is going to be considered an expert on roofing. And by the way, the phone's going to start ringing off the hook. Then you're going to need to figure out what you're going to do with all these customers. And first thing I would do is raise my prices. All right, let's go to number 4. We're almost halfway through our list here, and Mark is already asking questions. Number 4, to increase the size and value of your network. Right? So what do you think I mean by that, Mark?
Is it growing your audience in terms of your network and also growing your monetary value as you're getting paid to do your podcast because you have an audience?
Exactly. So that's one of the points that's coming up next, getting paid for your show. That's actually number 5. We can sort of combine these two together. But you're going to increase the value of your brand with this podcast, right? Because now you're not only this roofing company that rips people off, now you're this roofing company that also has a podcast, right? And you're within this new technology and you're doing the latest things, especially if you're going to use Stream Studio, because you're showing people, hey, not only am I using the latest technology for my podcast, people are going to think, well, he's probably using the latest technology for his roof, right? If this guy is already using the technology of the future, Stream Studio, and doing a podcast, he's probably not going to come give me some old garbage roof. No, he's probably using the newest material in the game, just like he's doing with his content. And then the other point that Mark brought up, which is number 5 on my list, is you can make money off of having your podcast. Forget about the roof. If lots of people are clicking on your videos to learn about roofs and all this stuff, you could start making ad revenue from that podcast. So not only is it bringing clients in the door, it's also making you money on the side. So this is so far a win-win, win-win, win-win. Now, there might be more wins coming as I keep going through the list, but so far we have about 7. All right, number 6, to position yourself as an authority in your industry. So we've kind of gone over this earlier in the list. Who is more of an authority figure? The guy who has a podcast about roofs or the guy who just has a roofing company? The guy who just has a roofing company sounds kind of like a loser, and he's probably going out of business. The guy with the podcast, he is doing the newest technology. He's doing the newest thing. He's more of an authority figure. Number 7, to promote your own products or services. So this is what we talked about. This is when we're talking about content marketing. Create content about roofs. It doesn't necessarily have to promote your business. Just talk about roofing. And at the end, maybe give the name of your company. People will look for you. People will say, wow, this guy knows a lot about roofing. I wonder if he does roof. Oh my gosh, he does? He has a company? Wow, let me call them for a quote. They seem great. Wow, they're a lot more expensive than the other people. Well, they also, are experts. They have a podcast. Well, let's pay it. Let's just pay it. Right? That was the thought process that's going to go through people's minds when they're choosing who they're going to go with. Number 8, hearing your voice makes it more personal. That is 100% true. If people are going to be putting in headphones, earbuds, they're going to be listening to your voice. They're really going to feel like they know you. So by the time you come to them and you say, hey, it's going to cost $157,000 to do your roof, people are going to say, you know what? I like the sound of your voice. I'm willing to do it. I will sign wherever you tell me. Here is a blank check. Write down whatever it costs. Because people have been listening to your voice. They trust you. They believe that you are somebody who knows what they're talking about. Maybe they listen to you every day when they go for a walk. They listen to the Daily Roofing podcast, right? You're a part of their life. They love you. They want to buy a roof from you. It definitely makes it more personal. Definitely much more than some, YouTube short that you're making. What's up, guys? Today I'm going to tell you which roof you need to buy. Da, 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 da. Right? That's very selling. That's very not personal. That sounds like an ad. Mm-hmm. You want to get personal with your customers? Do a podcast. Number 9, it doesn't take much to maintain. That's 100% true. You have 30 minutes in a week, an hour in a week to do your show. That's all it takes. And as we've shown you with Stream Studio, it takes less than 1 minute to actually get started doing your show, right? It takes less than 1 minute to actually say, I'm going to start a podcast right now. Maybe you have a great idea. You just, let's say, I always say that content is king. Let's back up for a second here. Hold on a second, Mark. You can add your point in a minute. Let's say you, just kidding. That was Mark's sneeze. That's his contribution to the show. Let's say that, content is king, right? So let's say you do have a roofing business and you just had an incident where a customer refused to pay you, and it became a big thing, and you're very emotional and you want to tell other business owners the experience that you just had. You can pull out your computer and you can go live in less than 1 minute and just bang out a podcast right there. That's a show, right? So all of these barriers that you used to have where you're like, well, I need to get back to the studio, I need to write a script, I need to bring in my producer, all of that stuff goes out the window. It takes less than 1 minute, right? And it costs very little. Stream Studio is about $19 a month. That's less than $1 a day. All of these things on TV where they're telling you to donate $1 a day to the puppies and stuff, that's more than $1 a day. This is less than $1 a day. And this helps you make money. This helps you build rapport with your customers. This helps you become a thought leader in your industry. Who knows if that's money is going to the puppies. So it doesn't take much to maintain. It doesn't take much to start up. It doesn't take much in terms of money, and it doesn't take much in terms of time. It doesn't take either of those. And finally, number 10, if we haven't convinced Mark yet, I think this one will, because who doesn't like to have fun? Number 10, folks, podcasts are fun. It's fun. It's fun to have a podcast, right? You get on there, you talk about your wisdom, your experience, and your field. For example, I have a never-ending flow of information on content and content creation and streaming. I am a streaming expert. And I love to come on the program and come on the webinar here and share it with all of the listeners. It's one of the things I love to do the most, because with everything that I've learned in my lifetime, I feel like I have a lot of wisdom that I'm able to pass on to future generations. So having the opportunity to have a podcast, even if it is with a sick person, is really nice to be able to come on the show and share my experience. It's fun. Mark, do you agree that it's fun?
I'm having fun right now, so I think so. This impromptu podcast we did with under 1 minute of prep time. Crazy.
Less than 1 minute. Less than 1 minute. Can you tell that I've done less than 1 minute of prep for this, Mark?
No. I'm very impressed right now.
There you go. And it's all thanks to Stream Studio, everybody. Stream Studio. Because let's say, all right, Mark learned how to do podcasts in the olden days with the olden technology. So Mark, can you tell us what it would have required for us to produce a podcast without Stream Studio, with the old technology? Now, while you walk us through what it would have taken, I'm going to keep track of how long it would take to set up that podcast. So I'm just going to add up the time while you're describing it to us. So let's start, Mark, what it would take to start a podcast without Stream Studio. Go ahead.
First, you'd have to pull out multiple cameras. Your guest would have to
Okay,
be in
hold
the
on a
same
second.
room.
Hold on. Pull out a bunch of cameras. That's at least getting them out of the bags, getting them set up with the tripod. That's at least what, an hour?
If you're good like me, maybe 10 minutes.
Okay, so let's split the baby. Let's do so we got 30 minutes of setting up the cameras. Okay, what's next? We're at 30 minutes.
Ideally, also, you have to be in the same room. You couldn't be remote. That's a big.
Okay, so your guest has to travel to you, right?
Yeah.
So depending on where your guest is, I mean, they could be in Africa, they could be in Kendall, they could be in Doral. We're based in Doral. Let's add an hour for travel time?
Yeah, let's say
Just
we have to meet up at this time.
Conservative,
travel
right?
time, you have to factor that in.
Okay, so let's say an hour for travel time. So we're at an hour and a half. Okay,
Yeah,
continue.
You have to mic up. That takes a while.
Mic up. That's at least 15 minutes.
Yeah, make sure that audio sounds fine.
Audio check. How long is an audio check, Mark?
Audio checks anywhere between 1 and 5 minutes. It depends if there's a
let's say
faulty
5
mic
minutes
or something. We gotta change a cable.
Ooh, faulty mic. That could be even longer. Let's add 10 minutes. So right now we're at an hour and 55 minutes. What else, Mark?
Then you start recording.
Then you start recording. So let's just add 5 minutes
Well,
to just a
well,
pad,
no, but
right?
then there's one thing we're forgetting. Afterward, you have
What?
to edit it together,
Wow. Okay, so
and
we're
that
at
takes a
two
lot of time.
hours.
That's gonna be
We're at
more than
2 hours
2 hours.
for pre-production. 2 hours for pre-production. Let's say it's an hour show. How much editing for an hour show?
Usually, editing is anywhere between two to three times longer than the actual product.
Okay, so 2 to 3 times. Let's just say three. We're going with conservative estimates here. We said an hour show. That's 3 hours. We had 2 hours for prep, 3 hours for post. So we're at 5 hours. 5 hours to produce a podcast before. Do you see why people used to not want to produce podcasts?
I'm starting to understand that I should have been in a different field because I'm obsolete
Well,
now.
that's the thing, Mark, is that, technology is changing so quickly. So when Mark joined the call today and I said to him, Mark, do you think you should do a podcast? Mark was thinking, okay, do a podcast about for 5 hours. Mark is thinking, I don't have 5 hours in a day to do a podcast. And who can blame him? I don't have 5 hours either. But when I told Mark about Stream Studio and told him that he could do a podcast in less than 1 minute, that changed everything for him. Because think about the difference between 5 hours and less than 1 minute. And that's not even including in the 5 hours the time of your show, right? That would be 6 hours. So 5 hours and less than 1 minute. What are all the things you could do with 5 hours and 59 minutes? A lot of things, right, Mark?
Yeah, I could cook a really good meal,
Mm-hmm.
maybe slow barbecue for 5 hours. Sounds pretty ideal.
Definitely. And while you're slow cooking, you could, clean your apartment. You could organize your closet. You could take a shower. Maybe do sort of spring cleaning in your wardrobe. Find out which clothes you're wearing, which ones you sort of haven't worn in a while. Maybe some of the clothes you're keeping for that special occasion, but it's been 3 years and you've never worn it. And you're saying to yourself, is that day really going to come? And you say, well, I've kept it this long. I might as well keep it a little bit longer. So you put it back in your closet.
Well, I don't want to throw you off, Liam, but if I'm gonna have an existential crisis by saving 5 hours, I think I'm gonna take 5 hours to make the podcast.
Well, Mark, think of all of these things. You wouldn't get your slow cooked meal. You wouldn't get your clean apartment. I think we can all agree that you're better off doing it with Stream Studio and using that time to do other things, right? If I said to you less than 1 minute or 5 hours, I think most people would say less than 1 minute.
You're right. You're
If
right.
let me put it to you this way, because you don't seem to be understanding. Let's say I stood outside. Let's say I went to the airport and there was a flight that was on its way from Miami to Vancouver, Canada. And the flight was a 6-hour flight. Okay. And everybody was lining up to board the plane with their boarding passes. And I went up to every single person and I said, excuse me, we have a portal here that can get you to Vancouver in less than 1 minute. Would you like to board the plane or take the portal? I think most people would choose the portal, right?
I take the portal. So I see the point you're making here.
Right. I think most people would. In this world of time and convenience and all this stuff, everybody's busier than they've ever been before. We're always going to take the more convenient path. And that is what technology is, folks. Technology is making things faster and more convenient. And today we've told you about just the latest and just the newest iteration of Web 3.0, of the future of technology, and the next big thing in podcasting. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that this episode has convinced you to start a podcast and has shown you how easy it can be to do that. Remember, in less than 1 minute with Stream Studio. Mark, thank you very much for joining us during the program. I'm so happy that I was able to convince you.
Yeah, I'm gonna start a podcast now. It's just that.
What's
easy.
it going to be called, Mark?
I think it's gonna be called the Mark Experience.
Wow, I look forward to hearing the Mark Experience. It's going to be a good show, and it's going to take less than 1 minute to set up. So it's going to fit right into Mark's busy schedule. Thank you very much, everybody. Today was the webinar on Stream Studio. You can join us again in 2 weeks. We will be back on May the 12th. We will see everybody in May for our next webinar talking about live to social and bringing you, again, the latest technology in the game. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.